I'm like doubling, tripling down on this holistic leadership approach because I think that it is the future. I think that we have seen now a couple of generations of what it looks like to just be all about the externals or to be in the position of a power struggle. And I think that there are a lot of folks that are going, that's just not working. That's not transformative. It doesn't help people to become the fullest version of themselves. So let's find a new way and bring the whole person into it.
What if the secret to effective leadership isn't found in doing more, but in becoming whole? In this episode of Seek, Go, Create, the Leadership Journey, I sit down with April Diaz, founder and CEO of Ezer Company, a trailblazing executive coach who's helped over 1,000 high-capacity leaders from C-suite executives to Olympians navigate transformation from the inside out. With 25 years of experience in proprietary wholeness assessment, I took that last night myself, that's turning traditional leadership on its head. April brings a rare combination of bold strategy, deep soul work, and practical tools for thriving in work and life. Whether you're a burned out leader or a high achiever looking for your next level of growth, this conversation will challenge and inspire you to lead with more intention, authenticity, and wholeness. April, welcome to Seek, Go, Create.
Thank you for having me, Tim. It's delightful to be here.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun. I can tell.
I know.
Whatever the word spunky describes, that would not be me. And I've listened to some episodes, done some research, and so we're gonna be like spunky meets
Some yin and
boring
yang.
or whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, hey, I kind of bounce around on my opening question, but for you, I feel like I need to ask. I think this one would really get us going in a fun way.
Okay.
'Cause you're a coach, and I know you've thought about all these things, but I'm gonna ask you what might be a hard question. What is your superpower? If someone
Mm,
had to nail down a superpower for you, and the reason I'm asking it while you're thinking is I get the feeling that you're good at lots of stuff, but what's your superpower?
I want to say it's teleportation because that would make life so much easier. I really wish that I could teleport. So that would be my superpower if I could choose one. Uh, Dang, that's a hard question. I mean, not a softball to get us started here. I,
Why is it hard?
but here's what
Tell me why it's hard while you think about it. Why is this a hard question?
I think because I am good at a lot of stuff. And that comes with its own set of Achilles heel problems when you can do a bunch. But I think my superpower is saying yes to things that are scary and hard.
Hmm,
Challenge accepted is my superpower.
hmm, good. So where does energy fit in with you? Because I also, I don't know why I thought you might say, I bring the energy, like
Yeah, that's true.
Superman brings in, because that's kind of my
Mhm.
perception of
Yeah.
you. Would that be accurate? I mean, I've only done a little bit
Yes.
of research. I haven't, been around
No,
you
that's
for
good.
30, 40 years,
You're a good
but
detective. Yeah, for sure. I mean, energy is a huge part of the work that I do. Like how do we help leaders with their energy management and being more energized, et cetera. But yeah, I mean, I would say I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, if your listeners are familiar with the Enneagram, which is why I said challenge accepted, because that is like the descriptor of the Enneagram. But also 8s have the highest energy out of any other number, any other type on the Enneagram. So yes, I often feel a little bit like a Tasmanian devil or like just a dog chasing my tail and days that I can't get enough focus. So I certainly have a lot of it, and I feel it in a room. I can sense where the energy is going, where it's draining, where it's popping. I can sense like when a person is certainly like struggling with something in their energy. So yeah, I mean, I like that you picked that up. I'll accept energy. That's my
so
superpower.
I'm gonna bite on something that you brought up earlier. I was thinking about bringing this
Okay.
up later, but I have heard people say, and maybe they've directed it at me, that our superpower could become our kryptonite, to play into the
100%.
Superman.
Yes.
And how, and we're just kind of starting here to
Yeah.
have people hang around to let them know we're going to be vulnerable. We're going to talk about strengths and
Mhm.
other stuff here. But how can that superpower become
Mhm.
kryptonite for your role or all the roles you
Mhm.
have or anything else? How,
Mhm.
how can it become your kryptonite? Because sometimes they can.
Yeah, it's 100%. I would have said in my 20s, I'm 46 now. In my 20s, I mean, I describe myself as a go-getter, relentless, challenger, highly ambitious. Like those are very true things about me. So I mean, sometimes I brag, like I can get more done before noon than most people can get done in 2 days. Like I just, I've got a lot of capacity. But in my 20s, when I had more like natural energy, like youthful energy, and all of that stuff combined, the kryptonite, or what my spiritual director actually called my Popeye arm, was I would run so fast and so hard for so long with such intensity that I wouldn't even see the brick wall coming until I hit it and I was flat on my back and I couldn't get off the couch for 2 days and I had a migraine headache and tension running all the way down my body. And I was like, where did that come from? I, I couldn't even see it. I mean, Mach 2 is my natural speed. So I'm older and wiser now. I can see the brick wall coming. So I still run real fast and real hard and can still get more done before noon than a lot of people can get done in 2 days. However, I'm much better at rhythms and managing my energy and pace and slowing down and recovery. And because I've experienced the brick wall, I've experienced the impact of energy gone amok, unregulated energy, and the significant consequences when you don't manage your energy well.
Hmm. Let me fast forward and give you a glimpse of about, 15, 20 years from now. You'll look at the brick wall from a distance and go, meh,
Nah,
yes.
not at
I'm not even gonna, I'm gonna just sit here and watch people run into it. And then maybe, take an Uber around the brick wall and then at the end of the day go, wow, look at it's no, it's fascinating. April, there's so many places that I want us to go. We talked before we hit record. We want to address leadership and all of this topic
Mhm.
related to, we don't like to group people, but sometimes things are different with male and female. We'll get into some of that later.
Mhm.
But I also think you just brought it up, so I'm going to keep going with it.
Yeah.
Age
Uh-huh.
plays into it also. What
Mhm.
is there a bracket of people that you deal with a lot as far as age goes? I read that you deal with a lot or mostly women. I'm sure it's probably not exclusive, but
Nope.
is there an age bracket that you have a large group of your people in?
Yeah, I would say late 30s to upper 50s is kind of the main zone that I am in. It's because I work with high capacity leaders, I work with a lot of executives. It's folks that have had long enough to like build a career and a runway and establish some of those extra responsibilities in life, but are also now like they know that they still have more gas in the tank. They've got some more like room to run and things to do with their life. So it's kind of in that like middle third of life, I would say, is folks that I typically tend to work with the most.
So what do you observe when I talk about things like age? Let's just bring something because that's a fairly wide range. I mean, you're talking about 20
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
that you could see a difference. And not every listen, again, we're not lumping everybody into things. However, we see trends. What do you see?
Hmm. Hmm. So I would say if we're going to start in like the 30s is where a lot of people's lives get way more complicated. People tend to get married, have kids. So there's just all of the juggling with all of the things. And you add in then for women that are in executive or high capacity roles, that makes life really complicated and difficult. So there's this kind of breaking point or breakthrough opportunity for women in late 30s and into the 40s of going, things have to be done differently in order for me to do it all. I actually believe you can do it all. You just can't do it all the time. And so you need to figure out how to interplay these things, how to change roles and expectations and share household labor and all those kinds of things. In the 40s, I would say, because I'm smack dab in the middle of it right now, 46, fully perimenopausal. We can talk about that in a whole nother episode, Tim. I'm sure your audience would love that. But this is a decade where women are going, I'm no longer willing to tolerate a whole lot of stuff. And I feel much clearer about my gifts, my skills, my voice, my contribution. And still, there's some next level, and there's some things that I need to tweak in order to do things differently than I did as I trained myself to do in my 20s and my 30s, particularly in my career or in my parenting. 50s is this really beautiful thing that mentors told me would happen. And I'm seeing it happen with leaders that I work with, again, particularly women, in that the 50s, more of the gifts and the experiences get like brought together like a stew or a soup where it's like the flavors are melding, it's coming together. It's not like separate things being cooked in different places, like what happens in your 20s and your 30s, but it's a more of a coming together. And then in the, you know, 50s and beyond, it's like the most impact and influence can happen if you have led yourself well, and if you are deliberate and aligned with how it is that you want to lead and how you want to live. It's like magic happens, like so much breakthrough, so many superpowers, so much impact that can take place because deliberate work has been done over a period of time. And it's like this phrase, sudden or slowly and steadily, then suddenly. I've been saying it a lot recently because I'm seeing that with a lot of folks that I'm working with.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I sent out an email to our followers and all today, and I just wrote, my wife and I had our 37th anniversary last week. And I
Oh,
wrote,
congrats.
yeah, thank you. And I wrote something to the effect of that we really feel as if we're just getting started. We're at a place where we're going
Mm,
through some transitions. There's some unique things going on. We're probably working as much, if not more, in some very nourishing, very,
yeah,
very encouraging places.
meaningful.
And so it's really cool. But I do agree with that. I also think we have seasons that we go through.
Yep.
And I will say for those that hear this probably every episode, grandparenting is really,
Mm.
really cool, especially compared to parenting. You can just kind of do your thing and then you're out and it's like, bam,
Feed them
you know, just,
sugar and then peace out.
I know, yeah. Send some money to them every once in a while and do that kind of stuff. And it's all good. So that's cool. All right. So let's do this before we get too much further because I really like to really see the type journey that people have been
Mhm,
on. And I think I read, I believe you were married young and all of that, but
mhm,
go back maybe even farther than that. And I like when people say you know, energy is their superpower. They've always been kind of a leader and all that. I really
mhm,
want to kind of dig and find out if that's really the case. Were you
mhm.
telling people what to do on the playground?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I sort of knew
I
that
told
already, but
everyone. Yeah, I told everyone where to go and what to do, and I was called bossy. Boys are called leaders, but I was called bossy, and I just had an idea of, like, how everything could be done better, how we could play better hide and go seek, and what better hiding places would be, and what better tagging we should do, and what where people got off the rails and were doing things that weren't so copacetic, and that was clear to make sure that those boundaries were held and justice was had. So, yeah, literally from the earliest of ages. I mean, I went to Faith Baptist Christian School from kindergarten through middle of 4th grade is when we moved. Those earliest memories on that playground in Morton, Illinois were absolutely me, and it was me with the teacher raising my hands, I helping teachers' pets. All of that stuff was quintessential April.
you weren't only bossy, you were bossing Baptist around, which is awesome.
I didn't know that that wasn't allowed to.
I grew up in the deep South, and I guess I probably went to kindergarten and all that kind of stuff in the Baptist church. So cool. So give me a couple other high points along the way and just your that mold you. And what I've often found
Mm,
are the struggles
mhm.
mold us more than victories, but
Of
either
course.
one,
Yep.
just give me a couple of high points along the way before we start talking about all the things you're working on now to kind of how
Mhm.
April became to be April.
Yeah. So April moved in that middle of 4th grade to Dallas, Texas. My family had all of my extended family, both sides, were born and raised in this small farming community in central Illinois. That was my whole world. And in the middle of 4th grade, that whole world kind of blew up, and my family moved to Dallas, Texas. And I am so grateful for the 3.5 years that we lived there because ultimately what it did, it made me a big city girl, for one. But on a deeper level, it just exposed me to a bigger worldview. It exposed me to different kinds of people from all over the world, different neighborhoods, different life stories, different experiences, different church, all kinds of stuff that really expanded my imagination and it expanded the possibilities of what I could have seen if I would have stayed in that same small town in central Illinois. And it was really hard because again, it was all I ever knew as this, little 8-year-old girl to have I had 15 cousins and both sets of grandparents and all these aunts and uncles. It was a very connected family. And that all went away when we moved, 1,000 miles away.
Mm,
So that was a really difficult thing. And even in the midst of it, felt like, oh, something is being like birthed in me. Like I literally remember that as a fifth or sixth grader. Like something is happening in me and I don't know what it's about, but I think I'm messed up. Like I think I'm forever changed by this experience. The other thing that just came to mind is when I was a senior in high school, I was a great student. I was student council president, like involved in all of the things, campus life in high school, the Christian club and one of the key leaders there. Very well liked, not necessarily popular, but just was friends with all the people in all the different groups. And my senior year, I ended up applying to one college. Don't recommend it. That's not the smartest move, but I applied because I really sensed that that's where God wanted me to go. And I was overqualified. And in April of my senior year, I got the letter back in a very thin packet saying, sorry, you're overqualified in every way, but there's simply not enough space and we cannot accept you. And that is honestly the first time that I can remember significantly failing. Like my resume looked good. I had done all of the classes, I had the GPA, I had all of the extracurriculars, I had all the leadership experiences, and I didn't get in and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was devastated and felt like a total failure. Like my whole future just shut down in front of me. And I didn't know what to do. And, in a way that only God can do, beautiful things happened and it changed the trajectory of my life, obviously. And I would never trade it for the world. I'm so glad I didn't get into that college that will remain nameless. But it just set me on a different pathway. And yeah, I'm really grateful. So I would agree with you that most of the best things that have happened in my life have come from the deepest pain.
yeah, interesting. So this is another connecting point we have. I was president of the student council also coming along. So I don't know, someone's either listening in going, oh man, those two are nauseating, or they're going, "Ah, it's kinda cool."
Get over yourself.
Yeah, I know. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah,
No one cares if you're high school president.
yeah, I know. It was cool, but not that cool. So you look
Yeah.
back on it. You mentioned your spiritual journey a little bit along the way there.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in and around church? Did you come to know, church or Jesus later? What's your
Mhm.
spiritual path along the way there?
Yeah. I mean, I asked Jesus in my heart when I was 5 years old in kindergarten at Faith Baptist Christian School. It always just made sense to me. Faith had always just resonated on a deep level that that there both is a God and that there is a God who loves me and the world. And to be loved by God and to love others is kind of the way to go, the way to be. And but yeah, I mean, in high school, like I was the only friend in my friend group that wasn't like drinking and doing drugs and having sex. I was friends with all of them and I loved them deeply. But I was like, why would you do that if you have Jesus? And why would you do that if there's like this greater calling and purpose on your life that just felt like you're kind of making a mess of your world? I felt called into ministry as a 16-year-old, like a pretty clear voice from God that this is what I've marked your life to do. And, but Tim, there was no context for that for me because I was a girl. I had never known that there was a pathway or a possibility that girls could be pastors, really, that girls could be leaders. So, really, so much of my origin story is like, this doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm in the wrong body. Like maybe God messed up with me because I have these very clear gifts of speaking, of teaching, and of leadership, but nowhere in the church was that allowed. And it certainly was, I mean, it was discouraged. So when I felt called in ministry, it was like a head scratch. But I remember distinctly as well, talking about challenge accepted back to the very beginning, is I had this very definitive moment, this very clear choice of I serve and follow God, not man. So if God's called me to this, then maybe they got that screwed up. My obedience and my allegiance is first and foremost to God. So I ended up pursuing a Bible degree and going into youth ministry at one of the largest churches in the country, and was in vocational church ministry for 17 years, and have, been out of that world for about 11 years at this point. But really the thing that I have lots of friends who are no longer followers of Jesus, lots of folks that I know who have left the church, and people that I love deeply and respect and all of that. But for me, I just constantly think of, Peter, who says, like, to whom else would I go? This is it all. This is it for me.
You gave me so much to talk about in
Sorry.
that little talk there. And so I'm trying to kind of decide here which direction to go. I think the
Oh,
first thing that I want to do is address the women in ministry thing that you brought up.
sure.
Someone has to have a pretty strong either conviction,
Mm.
some would possibly, this is not my word, I'm using the word rebellious, that
Yeah, sure.
you don't care, or you had to break away from some stuff, or
Mhm.
and I I get annoyed with a lot of things that come out of our church. I was saved in a business setting later in life, so I'm a little bit different and weird in that
Sure.
and especially being leadership and coaching and all, like we're gonna get
Uh-huh.
to talking
Uh-huh.
about here shortly. I look at a lot of things in ministry and I go, truthfully, I just hate to, we don't have profanity on here, but what the hell are they doing? Truthfully,
Doesn't
in
make
church,
sense.
But
Make it make sense. Uh,
talk a little bit more about.
Mhm.
I will go ahead and say this: the disservice of some of these
Yeah.
structured religion. I don't think it's scriptural. I think it's religion that have caused some of the issues, I believe, with, females not just going into ministry. I mean, I don't think ministry's in it, but I mean, even being in leadership and all in business.
Yeah. 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 Ultimately, it's about power. And so when there is a struggle for power, then of course somebody's got to win and be on top. And I fundamentally do not see that as the way of Jesus. That's not who Jesus was. That is the antithesis of how Jesus came into this world, to be a servant. And all of who Jesus surrounded himself with in his ministry years were the marginalized. So many of them were women. Women bankrolled his ministry. So I think ultimately it has a lot to do with power and fear. And talk about a disservice. I mean, research is even clear, Tim. Like when women get money, they disproportionately invest in their families and their communities. I'm sorry to tell you, men do not do that. Men keep it. It's research, it's data. And so there's something really fundamentally messed up. I think that this is another sermon for another day. I think that the enemy has a special hatred for women from the beginning. And it is generational curses. It is all kinds of things that are barriers and limitations for the sake of power and because of fear. So I think that for me, once again, there was enough purity somehow and preservation in my relationship with God where it just didn't make sense, similar to you. Like I was born and raised in a very conservative fundamentalist church. I mean, women wear head coverings. They greet each other with a holy kiss. Men and women sit on opposite sides of the church, you know, full suits to church, the whole deal. No instruments in the church, all kinds of very, very, very conservative things. And it never resonated with me. So was I considered rebellious? You did use that word. I would say yes, but they didn't have a box for me. Like I still have relationship with both sides of my extended family, whom I love dearly. And I got a nose ring. I don't know if you noticed. I've tattooed. I wear makeup. Like, I swear. Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't fit the box, but I think at the end of the day, like, there's at least a belief that I love Jesus. So I don't know if that totally answered your question,
No,
but I
it allows me to kind of keep ranting and then I'll throw it back to you to get your comment on this. I, for whatever reason, over the last year or two, I have decided to immerse myself in the first century so that I can
Mm,
understand the audience that the scriptures, New Testament, were written to. So to understand the letter that Paul
sure.
was sending, who is he sending it to so we don't take it out of context and try to
Yep.
apply that
Context,
to
context, context.
2025
Mhm.
because we're screwing up bad. I'll go ahead and say it
Big time.
right out front. The
Big time.
Bible wasn't written, it's written for me, but wasn't written to me.
Mhm.
And let me just tell you what, if you want to see some powerhouse women, when Paul sent people back into Rome, right when Nero opened it back up, this was before Nero went
Mhm.
bat
Mhm.
crazy later and then burned people at the stake. But he was looking for a leader of leaders to go into the biggest city in the
Yeah.
world at the time. And he sent a woman, businesswoman in there. And
Mhm.
she was the one. It was very strategic too, by the way. People don't
Yeah,
understand
of
how
course.
strategic it was. And all, and like you mentioned, the women that were with Jesus and others. I think it is ridiculous what we've done. So that's one rant. Second rant, then I'll
Mhm.
pause. I have said all along that men can't handle the type of things that are thrown at them when they become a leader over a few with a church and they've got the
Mhm.
microphone and then all of a sudden it grows to 20 and 200 and 2000. Men cannot handle all that we're asking men. I mean, I think you've been to a church years ago that had issues with one of the biggest around, right?
Correct.
We'll go and say Willow Creek. I saw it in your resume and I said, let's don't get off on that.
It looked real good on the resume until that time.
Yeah, well, how'd you handle that? Anyway, but one of the things I always said, I said, I don't think men can handle it. I actually think women could. Now, I don't like the leadership model we've structured in church world. We don't have
I
to get
agree.
off into that.
I agree.
I think we
Yep.
put too much on one person. It's usually a man and
Uh-huh.
all this kind of stuff. But
Yep.
I think women could handle it better. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of big thoughts that really honestly
Yeah.
have shaped the structure and the values of my company. One is I don't want to build an empire. I want to build an ecosystem. America and the American church looks a whole lot like an empire. And empires crumble and fall because of the power structure. But that is not how an ecosystem works. An ecosystem is generative, it is sustainable, it is mutually beneficial all the way around. It's beautiful. An ecosystem is beautiful. Go to the Great Barrier Reef, look at any sort of thing in nature, right? The creation that has been modeled for us. And I think that's how leadership is supposed to work. So the other part of that is I don't think that the response to patriarchy is matriarchy. It's partnership. It's been like that since the beginning, since literally the creation of man and woman. And it's been modeled all the way through the life of Jesus and the formation of the church. And we just have traded the ecosystem for the empire. We've traded partnership for patriarchy. And none of that serves both people. So I am all about women leading fully in every single space, equally with men. I would love to see women give it a shot at ruling the world for the next 2,000 years because the way that it's gone so far, it hasn't gotten us too far. It's not bearing good fruit. So sure, we could give women a shot at it. But I do think that there is something about the way that women lead that is really different and is so much more generative. So that's what I'm really committed to.
Yeah, and what you just described, the kingdom of God popped into my mind
Yep.
because you
Yep.
described, there's a king, and then
Yeah. And it's
I
not
don't even
me and
know.
it's not you.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily even servants, it's more stewards. There's more stewarding that's
Mhm.
going on. You just described
Yeah.
stewardship. You
Yep.
have people that you coach and you interact with,
Mhm.
and you're not the boss of any of
Correct.
them. You're probably not even the boss of your organization. You're a steward. And so
Mhm.
anyway, that was really cool. And I don't really have notes, but none of this was in my notes. So I'm having fun with this conversation.
We're just going rogue.
Um, at what point at what point did you say, I'm I'm a coach?
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
I've thought all along I was, but I think our industry is also a little bit odd and weird right now
Oh, yeah.
about that a little bit. But at what point did you say, I'm I'm
Mhm.
supposed to coach people? Let's take a quick pause. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you really questioned what success means? In my novel Coach, A Story of Success Redefined, you'll meet Cooper Travis, a man who had it all but still felt empty. His story mirrors what so many leaders quietly face: the pressure to chase more while silently wondering, is this it? This isn't just a story, it's a wake up call. It's about transformation, faith, and learning how to break free from the addiction to achievement. If you're ready to redefine success on your terms, then Coach is the book for you. Visit timwinders.com/books or grab your copy wherever books are sold. Let the story do its work. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
So my first taste at coaching was in 2005. I got coached by Dr. Jack Grapple. He is literally one of the world's best coaches, and he changed the trajectory of my life. I was 25 years old. I was that April version that was running Mach 2 so fast and so hard that I hit that brick wall and didn't see it coming. And he helped to shift that trajectory to running a little bit slower, seeing the brick wall, slowing down, all of that as one piece of the work that we did together for a year. And so that was a taste. And then it kind of went dormant and I was pastoring and then I became a mom and all sorts of things were happening over the next decade. But then in 2013-ish, no, 2012, I needed another round of coaching. And I had a friend who was, again, just a world-class coach. And so I asked if he would walk with me for a year and coach me because I was sensing that I was at the end of my pastoral journey and that I needed to figure out something else. However, I never imagined not working for the local church. That was my whole vision for my future. And so I was very deliberate with him and I said, I need for you to help me cultivate an imagination for what else is possible but beyond the church because I don't see it. I was in my mid 30s. I had 3 kids under the age of 4. I'd done this for 17 years. Like there was just like a whole life that I had lived and built, but I didn't have an imagination for what else is possible. And as he coached me through that year, something lit up in me and I was like, holy crap. I think this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And what's beautiful is that it takes some components of pastoring, mainly just the walking with people and like being in, going deep and having good conversations. But it puts structure. And I was like, this is actually what I think leadership development and spiritual formation is supposed to look like. But the church, to be honest with you, most of the time has no idea what to do with either of those things. They have no idea. They put together programs and piecemeal things together. But I was like, I think this is it. There's frameworks, there's structures, there's a goal, there's accountability and support. But at the end of the day, part of what was really good for me in becoming a coach is that it took away a lot of the Messiah complex that I had as a pastor. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what you do. It's not my life. You're responsible for it. You get to live with the results. You get the consequences and the rewards. I'm not making those decisions for you. It felt like I know what transformation now looks like. I know how to help people get from point A to point B, but you get to do that and you get to own all of that. And I don't, it's just not my responsibility. So it was 2012-ish when it felt like my eyes lit up and my heart set afire. And I was like, okay, I want to run towards this. And so I did.
Did you feel it's a common thing that we have here, April, people that have been in a ministry, full-time ministry role and then gone into some type of business or something like that. And so this is a fairly common question I like to ask, and that is, did you feel like a failure at all leaving? You said you were called to ministry at
Mm,
16, and
mhm.
then that the way we typically define that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying right or
Mhm.
wrong, I'm just saying typically,
Yeah.
is that you are in a church where people show up on Sunday, Wednesday, a couple other nights, and you're doing and all that. Did
Yeah.
you go through any, oh my, what is God going to think about this?
So that's a really good question. And what feels a little surprising to me to say is no, I didn't feel like a failure. I did feel a lot of grief. I felt grief that I was leaving behind something that felt like it was going to be forever, like my whole life. So I just felt sadness about there really wasn't anywhere else for me to go or anything else for me to do in the local church. And I just kind of hit my own wall, my own internal wall or a ceiling. And so, I lead a couple of mastermind groups right now. And one of the conversations that I'm having with those folks is a lot of times when you hit the ceiling, you have a choice of whether or not you keep hitting against that ceiling or you just get comfortable and you kind of settle back down and go into status quo and you're just stuck still. Or you can figure out a way to break through that ceiling and then you're going to the next level. And so for me, I just was really clear as a 35-year-old, there's a lot more left in me. I have a lot more untapped potential. I've got a lot more years to live, hopefully. And if I've kind of maxed it out here, something else has to be on the other side. So it's more of a grief that this wasn't the end and that's something new. I had to figure that out. And I didn't know exactly how to do that. And certainly, you know, as as a mom with three young kids, like just all of those kinds of like provision questions and protection questions and how are we going to do this as a young family were big, but it was clear. It just was clear that I had to move forward.
Many times when we go through transition, there's a lot of emotion.
Mhm.
I I will often be much more excited about it, but I could see that grieving, especially if it's
Yeah.
church setting and all that. Do you recall when you started asking people for money for coaching? What that was?
Oh my gosh.
Because a lot of people, especially ministry, they go like, how can I've never had a problem asking for money from anybody, just so you know, because I was a Gentile.
Yeah.
I
You did
I
not grow up
came
in
into
the
the church
church.
later, so I was the great unwashed masses that came in, but I mean, so I was
Uh-huh.
like, no problem. But I found a
Yeah.
lot of people, they coach, 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 but they can't at times say, okay, that's $1,000 for this time, or give me a buck 50 or
Yeah.
something like that. What was that like? Tell
Uh-huh.
me, tell me about that. I could tell by your response, it could be fun to hear this.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on an intense journey for the last decade with my own money conversation and the scarcity that I've had around money. For 15 plus years, I sold Jesus and I had no problem asking people to give their souls to Jesus. Like, that's a pretty big ask. But when it came to somehow I was a part of the conversation and that there was still a transaction related to me in an invoice or in a contract or in a proposal, it got real tricky real fast. And the downgrading and the minimizing and the justification of like, oh, it's not really, don't worry about it, or I'll figure it out. And yeah, so I've been on a really intense, again, deliberate journey to undo a lot of those money talks, those internal conversations about my relationship to money. I also think that, at least in my experience, the church is really bad about talking about money. And I've come to a place where I want to make a lot of money, not so that I can like have a lot of zeros in my bank account or, live this crazy extravagant life, but because I really believe that when you have been given much, much is required. And when you have been blessed, you get to be a blessing. And there's a lot of folks that are in need, and there's a lot of ways that my dollars can be of benefit and service in the ecosystem, in the ways that we care for each other. Who is your brother's keeper? Like, we belong together, we belong to one another. And so, yeah, I'm in a much different place now with money than I was a decade ago, but I have had to work through so much. It's wild to me. Like, I'm a really good coach. And I know people that have been coaching for like 5 minutes that charge 5 times more than what I've charged.
You probably
And it
don't want to
doesn't
know
make
what I
sense.
would charge. Yeah, I mean, I'm a
You
good
can tell
coach
me
too, but
offline.
still.
Yeah, exactly. Some of it is the lane. Like in the first probably 5 to 7 years, I was working almost exclusively in coaching youth workers. So churches don't pay for that. Youth workers don't have dollars. So there's a supply and demand, a value there. But certainly as I've grown in this space, it's just wild how much work needs to be done internally. in order
Yeah.
to be of service, actually.
So since that's a bit of a technical question about money, I'll ask a few other what I call technical coach questions,
Oh, cool.
because you brought up masterminds, which I love. I love participating. I think maybe
Mhm.
way too much. And then also I love leading and guiding them and just being around
Mhm.
them. Tell me, what is the type of coaching that gives you the greatest joy? Is it more of the group type settings? Is it
Yeah.
one-on-one? Is it, and there's hybrids around other things of it
Mhm.
too. So what do you really dig about the different
Yeah.
types?
Yeah. So our 6-month coaching group is a hybrid. It is 2 group coaching sessions every month because I believe that transformation happens better together. And again, for particularly for women, even women in high capacity executive roles, there's just not enough of them. There's too much of a unicorn type of mentality. They don't look around and see other women just surrounding them. And so that connection is really important in a group context. And I love that. I love seeing like the magical sparks that happen of like, me too. I thought that I was the only one. You think like that as well. You struggled with that. Like it's so helpful to just know you're not alone. So that group context is my favorite because of that. And also because like I get to watch it, right? I facilitate it. Certainly I'm coaching it, but there's something that you just get brilliant women in the same room together and magic happens. So that's awesome. But then I also do one-to-one coaching call with all of those participants every single month. And what I love most about that is you get really deep, you dig in hard, and the level of vulnerability that exists there is you can just do more because of that 60 minutes. And they know that is their space to like let all their guards down, take off the armor, let it all hang out, you know? And I've heard so many women say, you know, I've never said this to anybody else before, either my husband, or I can't believe I'm actually saying this out loud. And so that kind of creating that safety and the space for them to be brave feels like holy ground all the time. And I love that. So yeah, I think it's both and for me, but gosh, yeah,
I
I don't know, it's
actually,
good.
we talked about earlier, you talked about spiritual development and things like that.
Mhm.
I've said this before, and I don't think I'm making too much out of what we do as coaches, but to me, especially when you're combining it like you are, you're doing the small group and y'all are intimately sharing in each other's life. Sounds a lot like
Yep.
ecclesia to me. And then you're also discipling, let's use that word, working with someone one-on-one, spending time with them.
Yeah.
I really think that is the model that is
Mhm.
missing in ministry. I actually think you're doing
Yeah.
ministry.
Yeah.
I believe that you're doing ministry
Oh,
right now.
I'm doing better ministry now than I ever did in the church. Hands down, I've said it 100 times unapologetically. It's so much better. It strips away so much of the BS and the pretense. And part of the beauty too is Ezer is not a Christian company. I'm a Jesus person, so you know that's informed in all that we do. But our groups are really diverse. So we have women from all sorts of faith backgrounds and experiences. Over 50% of the women that have participated in our coaching groups are women of color. We are LGBTQ inclusive. And so there is a hugely wide swath diversity of women that are in our group. And that just makes it better too, because everybody brings in their differences. And then we see, oh my gosh, we're so much alike. And we belong so much to each other. And we're going to honor those differences because that's a uniqueness that you bring that represents, you know, what I think is the image of God within them that's unique to that person. But yeah, I think it's all of that too that is it's really it's holy ground. It really is.
Sounds like the kingdom to me, but,
It is.
really cool. So,
Mhm.
somewhere along the way, you developed an assessment and
Mhm.
you used the word wholeness, and, kind of an interesting and odd word. Tell me about wholeness.
Yeah. Yeah. So the root word of wholeness is healing. And I think that a lot of us need to come back to ourselves, that there is a healing, whether it's from childhood or from a, you know, difficult experience or some sort of loss or betrayal. I mean, we all need healing, but in the healing, it is a reclamation of the wholeness of who we've been made to be. Wholeness is also connected to like the word alignment and integration. And so, the work that I do in one word is around integration. How do we stop the compartmentalization and the segmentation and the separating ourselves and bring it all back together? We are whole people. So who you are at home and at work and with your friends and with your kids and all of that, that's the whole you. So it's more about how do we bring those parts together so that you are not having to just fragment yourself out depending on whatever space that you're in. And really, to look at that whole person requires our framework of 6 parts. We start with physical, and then it's physical, emotional, mental, relational, spiritual, and renewal. Those 6 parts work together to create the whole person. And, there's different layers within those 6 parts for sure. But that is really what the whole person is and requires in order for us to live and lead with our whole self.
Mm. All right. So I went and I took the assessment last night.
Yes.
Says
Called the whole leader snapshot.
my overall score is 8.97
It's
and
pretty good too.
physical
Out of 10.
9.2, emotional probably fudged on that. I've got a 7.4, mental 8.6, 9.4, 9.2 on spiritual, and then a 10 on renewal, which reading my scores, it wants me to bring up the topic of someone who might be delusional that takes a self-assessment and how might, first of all, I don't think people that are totally delusional would take an assessment. However,
Correct.
it is possible. I mean, there was some bouncing I did, like, on emotional. I generally don't get very emotional about things, and there were some questions that were pressing that I was thinking,
Mm,
this was kinda tough for me. I don't
yeah.
necessarily grieve properly what the way society says, but I think I handle it okay with me, so I didn't know where to go. Anyway, but
Sure.
my
Yeah.
point is oftentimes self-awareness is the biggest Achilles heel that most of us have, even
Mhm.
people that will claim we are self-aware and take assessments.
Mhm.
How do we deal with issues in delusional and self-awareness
Mhm.
issues?
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, that is a really high score, one of the highest ones I think I've seen. So either well done
I'm an
or
old dude and I'm really at peace and rest. I have a lot of
Mhm.
balance in my life. I sleep well and blah, blah, blah. So anyway,
Mhm.
part of it's age, and it kind of goes back to the age question we talked about
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. So, I mean, you're right. That assessment is designed to provoke self awareness. There's a lot of questions on there that most people don't think about in their everyday ordinary life, especially if you're a high capacity leader and your goals and your MO is more about operating with the externals, the KPIs, the metrics, the initiatives, the projects, the all of that, right? My approach is that leadership begins within and that you are the most important person you will ever lead. And how you can lead more effectively and more efficiently to, increase your impact and your influence is to expand your internal capacity. When you expand your internal capacity, you will naturally get different external results, right? This is Jesus stuff. It's like out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's all like a good tree bears good fruit. Like all of this stuff is embedded into just human design, how humans behave and develop in the world. And so this assessment is really to help kind of provoke that. I will say and agree with you. Most people think that they are self-aware, like 90 to 95%. I think that's the research is that people will say I'm self-aware. And the reality is about 5 to 10% folks have actual self-awareness. So there's a big gap between who we think we are and what we are. So that assessment, and that's our mini one. We have the one that we use in our coaching program is 120 questions. It is much more robust. It goes much deeper into really kind of bifurcating and nuancing what does wholeness look like in all 6 of those dimensions and where might be there be some opportunities. So we use that as a starting point because the first task of a leader is to define reality. And that starts with you. So what is really going on about myself? And to whatever degree you're willing to be honest and to really reflect and look within is going to get you the results on the other side of it, because then we're going to be able to actually do the work or we're just going to play a game. So yeah, I would say most folks that are in our community or that I've worked with have some willingness to go, okay, maybe this could be better. Maybe this isn't actually real, or this is a part of my life that I'm willing to actually explore a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Every time I do assessments, I'm kinda like I've done a lot of assessments in my life,
Mhm.
is I'm like,
Same.
"Man, I wonder how long it was takes." It was light, but had heaviness at times.
Mhm.
Didn't take a lot of time. It was like, you know,
5
late in
minutes.
the evening. Yeah, and I was like going, let me do this. I think this is how I can learn about April is,
Oh, I
doing my
love it.
research
Good
and all
job.
that. So, and we'll include links and we'll mention it again before we wrap up here. But
Good.
where do you see trends related to leadership? You interact with a number of people. I see some things. Sometimes I'm concerned that my age, I don't want to be like old crusty guy. I actually don't think that, but I know that people can be. Where do
Yeah.
you see things going? Are you generally optimistic, pessimistic about leadership in general?
Oh gosh. I think I'm eternally optimistic, and I'm very concerned about the state of leadership. So it's a both and to me. I think that leaders disproportionately change a room, impact a family, influence a nation. And the results of the consequences of those decisions and that way of being in the world it's huge. So I mean, I'm like doubling, tripling down on this holistic leadership approach because I think that it is the future. I think that we have seen now a couple of generations of what it looks like to just be all about the externals or to be in the position of a power struggle or power over. And I think that there are a lot of folks that are going, that's just not working. That's not transformative. It doesn't help people to become the fullest version of themselves. So let's find a new way and bring the whole person into it. That I am like a couple of times in this recording, you've seen one of my kiddos run up and down the stairs. Like that's just life. Like that's my family. I was on a coaching call a couple weeks ago and I got a call from my kid's school and then it was the nurse's office. And I felt so guilty and unprofessional in the moment to say, I'm sorry, Melissa. I need to go. My kid needs me to pick them up from school. And her response was beautiful. She's like, "You're a mom first." And I was like, "Thank you." But I don't know that I always would have even done that. I probably would have told the nurse, like, hang on to that kid for the next 30 minutes and I'll be there after the call it's done. But I want to be this, I want to be the same congruent human everywhere that I go, you know? And so this holistic approach allows me to bring myself together and not be just pulled apart and fragmented. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And it's also the stress or the tension that we face in the culture and society that we're in today. And we all face it in a different way. When you've got kids, it's different than when the kids are grown up. I'll tell you that once
Sure.
they grow up, you don't stop parenting.
That's what I hear.
It just looks a little bit different, and
Yeah.
it's just a tension that goes on. And like back to the leadership thing, I think the thing that's I don't think it's disappointing to me. I think it's maybe even discouraging a little bit. We don't have a lot of great examples of leaders at
Mm,
our I'll say the national level, and most of them are political, and this is not a party type thing either. Name any of them,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
could poke holes in their leadership, even if it's the one you
Mhm.
support. I could
Yeah.
I could take a stance, and so I think the examples are tough for the teenager that just walked up and down the stairs behind you. And the best examples that they can have are their mom sitting
Yeah.
here having a conversation with some dude on a podcast or something like that. Um, but I also do believe that the profession of coaching helps,
Yeah.
but this profession, we brought this up earlier, there's a lot of people that are leaving jobs and all that, that are deciding that they are a coach There are a lot of people that coaching looks like a path to make money, to go back to the money thing earlier.
Hmm.
And I've like early on, April, I knew I was a coach. Like I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. Both my parents were educators.
Hmm.
I say this all the time. And then I found out how much money they made. And I didn't
You're
realize we
like,
were poor. And so I became an engineer and all that. And then, but everything I did, I went back to coaching. So talk a little bit about, I want to word this in a different way. What separates you out? What separates you? What there's a lump of people, and I know
yeah,
you've got some degrees in coaching and things like that. I like that, but there are a lot of people out there with degrees in coaching and other
sure.
things that may not be.
Yeah.
Tell me why someone would be part of what you're doing and what they would gain from that experience. And be bold
Yeah.
and don't be
Yeah.
shy. I don't think you will. This is not a time for humility.
Well, humility actually is agreeing with God about who God actually says that you are. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I do think a baseline is certification and training. You would never go see a therapist who has not done time, who has not got the degree and done the hours and taken the test and all of that. You just wouldn't. I mean, that's malpractice, right? So there's a lot of coaches out there who have not done the baseline of what it looks like to practice the developmental science of transformation or growth or whatever. So that is the basis. Like I'm trained in neuroscience and trained in just how humans actually develop. So I think that that's a baseline. It's like a starting point. Get you up to the base, or gonna get you up to the I don't know sports. I'm just making stuff up now. Get you on the team. I don't know. So that's a starter. But I do think that what makes our stuff unique is that, or makes my coaching, one, I am doing the work, hands down, unapologetically. I hopped on a coaching session last week with a client, and she asked how I was doing. And I said, do you want the quick answer or do you want the real answer? Do you want the just the fine, or do you want? And she said, tell me the real answer. So we spent over 7 minutes, and I was really vulnerable with her about something that was just integral to my own wholeness work that was happening in real time. And she was like, I thank you so much. She's in her like mid 50s now. And she's like, I just have never followed anyone that has modeled that for me, that has shown me what it looks like to really lead boldly and to be courageous and to kind of both have your shit together, but also not. And she was so grateful for it. And so I think that like I am practicing what I preach. I do what I am inviting others to do. I am far from perfect. I lose my temper with my kids. I am not present at times. Like I can be a hot mess, but I'm in it. I'm really doing the work. And I think there's something to be said for that. It's also a distinctive and a uniqueness that a lot of coaches out there will just tell you what to do. Like, do as I have done. I have been this successful. I have done X, Y, and Z. So you just take my playbook and then you can also be like me. I'm not your guru. I'm not your expert. You are. You get to be the expert in your own life. And so I get to be a midwife or a doula or some sort of, stand witness to this beautiful transformation process and ask you great questions. But at the end of the day, like do not call me if you want advice from me. If you just want me to tell you what to do, I won't take that kind of responsibility for your life. You get to decide that. And then our framework, our 6-part framework is pretty freaking powerful, and it gets people results. And what is cool, 9 times out of 10 is the leaders who we work with go, I achieved the top goal, but I did not anticipate these 100 other wins along the way because I did it from a holistic framework. I did not just achieve the goal at the expense of all these other things. I brought myself and all of this other stuff along for the journey, and I am more of myself, and I achieved this really big thing. And I'm really proud of that. And I just really believe that is the future. And we can replicate this. This is a system. This is a process. This is a way of life that you can integrate, and it will continue to just compoundedly get you really powerful results.
Mm.
So that's a starter list for you, Tim.
Woo, that's good. That's good. That's good. How can people find you? Where do they need to connect? We'll put a link down for the assessment, but go ahead and verbally
Yeah.
give people if they're like riding in their car or listening in or something like that.
Yeah. Ezerandco.com is our website. It's EZER and co. Ezerandco.com/snapshot is the link to the assessment that you were talking about, and that will get you directly there. It's also on our homepage. But I think that's a really great first step because it does give you a reality check. If you're willing to do a little bit of internal reflection, you're going to get a good first look at what's like pinpointing. What are you really doing well? Where are you struggling? Where might be a good next step for you? And then there's an opportunity to even schedule a clarity call with me if you're like, I would like to do some more work here and figure out what it could look like for us to do some work.
Awesome. Last question. How are you defining success right now?
Mm.
And it could be big, 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 or it could just be something small. That's at one point our tagline was redefining success, but just curious.
In a word, success to me is sustainable. It is something that you can live into, you can live with. But I think that for me this year, this is a whole nother podcast, Tim. So dropping this at the 11:59. I'm coming out of a 2-year medical health crisis that tried to kill me. And it was catastrophic on every single level for my life and for my leadership. So I'm just I'm about 6 months out from like coming back to myself in that. And so success for me looks like restoration. It looks like God giving back so much of what has been stolen and reclaiming what has been given to me.
Hmm. That's the reason I think that's so beautiful is in the world we're in, that word success, people tie so many what I consider to be superficial things, but being
Yeah.
restored and having your health and being vibrant and doing what you're doing really cool. April Diaz, thank you. Thank you for all that you're
Yeah.
doing, but specifically, thank you for being on the show. Thanks for talking and letting me poke at you with some probably questions that others may not have asked.
I'm
And
a fan.
I'm excited for all that's going on. I'm excited for people that are going to take the assessment down in the links. If you're on YouTube, we'll put it down below. And if you're listening on the podcast, it'll be on the website that you could click on and connect with April. And I just appreciate all of you being here, man. Seek Go Create is growing. There's a lot going on here. I
Mhm.
enjoy the heck out of it.
Sure.
Enjoy talking to people like April. So thank you all. We have new episodes every Monday. So see you next time on Seek, Go Create. Hey, before you go, I want to leave you with a challenge. If you're enjoying the conversations here on Seek, Go Create, I think you'll love the deeper journey my novel Coach, A Story of Success Redefined, takes you on. It's a story that's moved many of my readers to rethink what success actually means and how to live a life aligned with faith, purpose, and peace. Pick up your copy today wherever you buy books or at timwinders.com and begin the journey for yourself. Thanks again for listening. And as always, keep seeking, keep going, and keep creating.